Hello, everybody, and welcome to our podcast, Welcome to Livingston, where we invite local businesses, people, and organizations in to talk about what they are giving to our community. My name is Don Putkela.
And I'm Angela Putkela, and we're with the Putkela Group Real Estate Professionals. As realtors and brokerage owners, we bring valuable insight into the local market and community every week.
Thanks for listening, and welcome to Livingston. Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Welcome to Livingston podcast. My name is Don Putkela.
And I'm Angela Putkela, and our show is brought to you by the Putkela Group Real Estate Professionals and powered by James Paquette with Lake Michigan Credit Union.
Yes, and you know what? We are so happy to be here today. If you've noticed, we do not have a guest with us today, so it's just the two of us, which happens every once in a while.
Yeah, we enjoy sitting down with all the different businesses and community leaders each week. But every now and again, it's nice just for the two of us. Sometimes we talk about the community itself, but other times, since we are realtors, we dive into something a little more real estate-y.
Yes, and today is one of those days where we're going to talk about a certain aspect of the real estate industry, of the housing and the resale industry, if it were, right?
Right. Well, and sometimes, people think real estate and they think buyers and they think sellers, but investors are a huge part of real estate as well.
Yeah, so investors could be anywhere from, you're buying a home for flipping it for a long-term investment purpose or to become a landlord, right? So you're going to have tenants. So there's a variety of different reasons that you could be purchasing a home. And depending on what that reason is, you're going to be looking at the house in different aspects, right? But as an investor, I think the biggest thing you're buying it for is for that potential future sale, possibly flipping it or even a renter. But you're looking at what can you do to improve the home to make it more valuable in the future.
Right. Whether it's the near future or the far future, by putting your money into real estate, there's a hope that you can make a lot more on the back end of that.
Right. Yes. Because, real estate, regardless of what you're looking at, regardless of where the economy is, real estate is still one of the best investments you can make because you're holding on to something tangible.
Right.
Right. There's an innate value in the land and in having a home.
Right. And it's interesting when you look at statistics, there's so few times that the prices of homes went down.
Right.
Like you can count on one hand throughout all,
since World War II.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So modern history.
Modern history.
Right. Mm-hmm. So if you look at this conversation we're going to have today in terms of investors, in terms of possibly flipping a home or improve. So a flip is when you purchase a home and you do immediate improvements to it and you put it back on the market to sell it. Essentially, you're flipping it. You're saying, okay, this is the hand I've been dealt. Now I'm going to make the hand better by the changes I make to the cards I'm holding.
Right.
And then I resell it, right?
Yeah.
So let's look at it in terms of that aspect. We're going to jump around a little bit, give you a little bit of advice, or maybe even give you some idea of the way a realtor looks at that kind of transaction and what your agent should be doing to help you through this process if you are an investor.
Right. So where would you want to begin?
Wow. There's so many different spaces we could look, but in terms of our areas of expertise, let's start with you have the money. Maybe you're sitting on some cash. You're going to go out and look at a home.
Right.
Right. So if you're going out to look at a house, what are you looking for in terms of identifying a potential home that you would want to buy as an investment?
Absolutely. In my mind, it's a house that has potential, something that maybe is undervalued, which the last few years here with the bidding wars and the high demand and the low supply, that's made it really hard for investors. But even in these past years, there's been opportunities, sometimes as simple as a home had poor photos and people couldn't see through it. Maybe it's been, kind of shop worn, sitting on the market for a long time. Some of those are good opportunities, but even sometimes nowadays, even with aggressive pricing. We have seen in some cases where something is just priced to move. And
Right.
if that investor maybe has cash or has access to cash, maybe they could get a deal on something. It really depends on the house itself.
Right. I think you're the main thing you're looking for is you want something that's outdated.
There you go.
I think you're talking about bad pictures, everything else. When we're working with an investor and I'm flipping through pictures,
That's fair.
I'm looking for something that's outdated. I am happy to see Formica countertops. I'm happy to see shag carpeting. I'm happy to see older appliances. I'm happy to see, paneling on the walls.
Right. These are all something that an investor can do about, especially if it's cosmetic, right? Maybe for a home that happens to have a newer roof and newer mechanicals, and it just looks really ugly inside. That's an investor's perfect dream.
Right. Because again, as an investor, you're looking at what is your area of expertise, right? Maybe you're a person that's really good at, all forms of remodeling. And you're like, you know what? I gut things down to the walls and I'm okay with ripping out walls and just like, I'm building it from the ground up. Kind of like you see in some of these shows that you watch that we'll talk about later that aren't accurate. Mm-hmm. But maybe you're the type of person that's like, you know what? I can paint, I can put down new flooring, and I'm good at staging, right?
Right.
Those two people are looking at very different houses.
This is very true. But for any of those people, if they know their prices, they know, even if they have someone coming in to bring in carpet, if they know where they can get cheap carpet reliably, those are good qualities. Like, you don't have to necessarily be the person to put it in, but if you know what the costs are going to be, then that really helps in the back end to identify how much potential there could be in a home as well.
That is exactly right. And speaking of costs, I just wanted to take a moment right here. When you're looking at investment properties, a lot of times you do have cash, but sometimes maybe you're looking to finance that investment, right?
Right.
That is a great time to reach out to our sponsor, because we have a great sponsor, Jim Paquette with Lake Michigan Credit Union, that we're just going to take a moment here to say a few things about. Today's episode of the Welcome to Livingston podcast is brought to you by our valued sponsor, Jim Paquette with Lake Michigan Credit Union. He is a trusted mortgage lender who has lived and worked in our community for many years. Jim Paquette is dedicated to helping our neighbors achieve their homeownership dreams and is proud to support the local businesses that make our area special. Now let's dive back into the stories of the incredible entrepreneurs we are featuring today. So, what we were talking about before is just that it's so specific to the house, right?
Yes.
Right? So when you're going out to look at a house, the first thing you're looking at in terms of assessing it is what types of things could be done to the home, right? Knowing your numbers, knowing your area of expertise, right? But you kind of hinted on it a little bit earlier. I would say that for any buyer, an inspection is really important. But for a flipper, an inspection is like so important.
I believe it is.
Right?
Unless you're running into a tear down that, isn't going to do a whole lot. But at least for the investor, the thing is, when they turn around and they sell it, that buyer is going to get an inspection. And do they want to have a surprise at that point in time?
Right.
They would be much better prepared to know what they're getting into.
Exactly. And, for me, I would say I'm preaching about the same things I talk to my buyers about. You're looking for those unknown things. As an investor, you still want to get a well and septic inspection because that can be so expensive for you if it's possible to get one, right? You want to get the water tested. You want to get up into the attic and see if there's any mold. You want an inspector, or if you're very knowledgeable about it, getting up on the roof and looking at that roof. So you're giving yourself a checklist of like, hey, these are the things that I'm going to have to address during the remodel process. Because one of the things I would say, if you're watching those shows, right, those flip it and fix it type shows, they don't give you a true idea, but they throw into the show just for storyline a lot of times of like, oh my gosh, we are opening up this wall and look what we found behind it that we didn't know. Right. And on the show, it backs up production like a week.
Right.
Okay. Where for you as an investor, this could blow up your entire budget. And now you're just hoping to break even because of something that you didn't see going through the process. So you really have to have an idea in mind. You need to know what you know and know what you don't know.
Right. Because to just enter in blindly, you are taking on a lot more risk than you might realize.
Right. Yep. So, and I would say also when you're looking at a flip, square footage matters.
Yes, very much so.
Knowing what you have to work with.
Yeah.
Right. Location matters.
Right.
Right. You don't want to be the most expensive house in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Or at the very bottom.
Or at the very bottom. But I've seen people over improve.
Yes, that's fair.
Where you over improve to the point of that I don't have comps for you anymore.
Right. You might have done some beautiful things on the house, but if it's limited by the homes around it because of the comps become so important, right? The comparable home analysis that is really important for an investor in particular.
Right. Yeah, no. You have a good agent that's able to pull those comparables for you. When you're going into buying investment, you should ask your agent, what's the top end that you think this home will be worth?
Right. What can this home absorb?
Right.
Basically, because the sky's not the limit.
Right. You're buying an investment property for $300,000 and you're going to put $50,000 into it. And you're like, okay, to break even, I have to sell this for, $380 or $400 after you look at the fees and your time and investment and everything. Ask your agent, what other homes in this neighborhood have sold for $400? What comps can you pull that say that this is what the home is going to be worth? And then backwards engineer your budget to say, hey, this is what I can absorb. This is the offer.
This is the maximum.
This is the maximum. So this is the offer I'm willing to put in so that I can make a profit on this.
Right.
Right. So it's really important to have a budget and have a timeline.
Yes, because time is money.
Right. Let's talk about the investor that thinks it's going to take him 6 weeks and it takes him 6 months.
Yeah, because those holding costs become huge, especially in terms of taxes. So it's not just the taxes themselves, but because presumably this isn't your homestead primary place of living, right?
Right. So you're paying higher property taxes while you hold the property.
Right. Plus, when you turn around to sell, guess what? Whoever buys it is going to pay more in property taxes because you've taken so long. That's probably part of the appeal for some people that kind of fix it up and flip it around quickly, is because then the taxes haven't hit quick enough that at least whoever comes in, if it is their primary residence, will not be able to miss a beat. But if you take it on and hold it, and for the investor that's holding it for 6 months, it's not even just the added cost of the taxes. There's an element of risk, because for however long you hold on to that property, there's something that could happen or go wrong.
There's something that could go wrong. But again, if you're doing this at a high level, you're looking at the time value of your money.
Yes.
That your money could be making interest someplace else, but now it's caught up in this house, right? So you should be doing the analysis on all of those things. The other thing you should really be paying attention to is you should be paying attention to where the house is located, the community that it's in, specifically for things like point of sale inspections. Right.
Yes.
So there's some communities that have a point of sale inspection, other ones that don't. Most communities in Livingston County do not have a point of sale inspection. But let's say you are buying a house in someplace like Westland, right? And it's an investment property. Livonia. So now you have, not only do you have a point of sale inspection where the city gets to come in and make sure you did the work right. Some of these communities are going to say, okay, well, you bought it as an investment. Now it has to be completely up to code.
Right.
You're like, oh my gosh, I did not think I was redoing the electrical in this house. I did not think I was going to be having to put in new smoke detectors that are carbon monoxide, that are all interconnected, right?
Yeah.
Look into those things and see what those hoops are that you're going to have to jump through, because every hoop that you jump through has a potential to cost money, to delay you, and to cause issues, right? So doing your homework on something like that is really important.
Honestly, it's critical, because knowing your numbers, once you know your numbers, And if you have a price you're willing to pay that the seller's willing to sell for, and you know what the top end is, well, now you're on the clock, because whether you can get it show ready within weeks or months, it's the same amount of money. It really isn't changing.
I would say one of the other things I want to talk about is, as a investor, make sure you're looking at it and following what the current trends are. Right? If gray is the hot color right now, putting in the right thing, putting in the right type of flooring, deciding the appliances that you're putting in, what kinds of things are you adding to the house? Are you adding that wine fridge? Are you, ripping out a tub in a bathroom to put in a shower, right? Follow those current trends. Don't remove every tub in the house. That's one of my big advice. People love removing tubs, but you got to remember, hey, there should be a tub somewhere in the house.
Right. No, that makes a difference. And to try to be as neutral as possible, you want to appeal to as many people as you can. We did have a client recently that's a buyer that bought a flipped home that had all kinds of really sparkly light fixtures, right? And, he is a single guy. He's like, okay, that's the first thing, I'm changing that. So here, he's coming into this beautifully renovated home, and, because he didn't want sparkle chandeliers in every room, then that becomes cumbersome.
Right. But remember, it's put your touch on it, but remember also that it's not, you're trying to stay a little bit neutral, right?
Right.
But you're also trying to appeal to the community that the flip is in. So if you're buying a lakefront cottage that you're flipping, that's different than flipping a condo, which is different than flipping a colonial, right? So you're matching your style to where the house is located and what the potential buyer pool is.
Right.
Right? A $200,000 flip is different than a $1.2 million flip on what you're going to put into the house.
Yeah, that's very true.
Right.
And so, it might be tempting to buy more expensive hardware or something, this or that, but if you're not getting the dollars back, it's not necessarily worth it. And those that have done investment property, they've figured a lot of this out. But in terms of new investors, those are some of the things that we've seen happen for people, where they spend extra that they don't need to.
Right. And for the new investor, are you going to do it yourself, or are you going to hire it out?
That's the $1 million question, because a lot of these investors want to just do it all themselves, but then it looks like a handyman special, and tough on buyers,
I cannot put a number on the number of times that I've walked through a flip with my buyer, and the buyer says, well, they did this themselves. Yes. I can tell, they did the best they could, but, and then they start to list off the things that they saw that weren't done exactly right, because maybe the person is really good at this aspect of flipping, but not good at this other aspect. But because they wanted to save money,
they did it all.
And
buyers can tell.
Buyers can tell. No, you got to know. It's like, listen, if you're not good at laying tile, stop laying tile.
Right. Just hire somebody then.
Right? It's not worth the aggravation.
Right.
Right? It's like, I suck at yard work. Okay? I'm not good at it. I don't like to do it.
Yeah.
I hire someone to take care of my yard, because not only do I not like to do it, I know that I don't do a good job at it. Right? So it's the same way in a flip.
Yeah, know your limitations.
Right? Know your limitations. If I was doing a flip, I would be able to do all the electrical work. Right? But I would not be able to do the plumbing. And I would hire out the plumbing, because I know that's not my area of expertise.
Right.
Right. So a flipper has to realize the same thing, that when you're hiring someone to do it, you're saving time and you're saving money, because we all know when we've done projects at home, it's not one time to Home Depot. And it's when you do it wrong the first time, it just costs you more money than it would have cost to have someone do it right the first time for you.
Right. And then it doesn't look as good as you've slaved over it trying to make it look
exactly.
nice.
And I would give that advice to the people that are remodeling their own homes.
Yes, that's true.
Right?
So even outside of
if it's not your area of expertise, hire it out. So, and that's the big difference when you're talking about a flip or an investor even getting a house for a rental. Are you doing repairs? Are you doing renovations? Are you doing remodeling? Or are you doing rebuilding?
Yes.
Those are
There's
four
a big difference.
distinct areas, right?
So tell us more about each of those.
Repairs, you're coming in and you're doing purely cosmetic stuff. You're changing some plugs, you're painting, you're putting in some new fixtures. You're maybe putting in a new sink, right? But you're doing basic things. If it's, you're freshening it up.
Kind of like a handyman.
Like a handyman. And you're doing the things that you have to do, but you're not doing anything else that you don't have to do.
Right.
Right? It's surface.
And spoiler alert, the inside of closets don't necessarily need to be painted unless they're super disgusting, right?
Right, exactly. So that's your repairs, right? Then you go into your renovations. Renovations, okay? So you're painting the cabinets. You're putting new hardware on the front of them, so new knobs. You're throwing in some new countertops. You're putting up some new mirrors.
Backsplash.
Backsplash. Maybe you're adding glass to the front of your shower, right? New flooring is going in throughout the house, right? So now you're into renovations, but you're not looking at the inside of walls yet, right? So you had your first level plus your second level. You're like, okay, I think that a major flip or a flip is usually in the renovation category, right? Remodeling is where you're ripping the cabinets out.
Right. Or
you're changing
ripping a wall.
Or ripping a wall out. You're changing the configuration of rooms of the house, right? Yeah. I've gone through houses with investors where they're like, this wall between the kitchen and the living room, we're removing that wall. And the fridge is going from here to over there. And we're taking the sink off of the sidewall. We're putting on this big island that we're putting in the middle. Now you're talking major remodeling. Right? Major remodeling not only takes more money, but it takes more time. Right now, when you're in the remodeling aspect, now you're talking city inspections.
That's true.
Okay.
Even within Livingston County.
If you're talking renovation in a kitchen where you're not moving anything,
right?
Usually you don't need an inspection for that, right? Because you're not physically changing where anything is.
Right, to get permits.
Because
you need to contact the city or township.
You start doing real remodeling. Now you're inviting the city in to make sure that you're doing the work correctly. You're hiring in contractors to do all of these things. You better make sure that you have some nice upside on the house.
Right.
The next stage is rebuilding or an addition.
Right. It's a major building.
Major. You see this when, you see this a lot in places like Royal Oak or on Lakefront where they're buying the old house. And when they're done, you can't recognize that it's still the same house.
Right.
You've added a second level or you've put an addition on the back or even, if you have a house that, it's a 2,500 square foot ranch and the basement never got finished and you came in and you finished the entire basement, I would put that in the aspect of almost like a rebuild because you're putting up walls.
Right.
So you have those 4 stages and they each have their unique issues and their unique upsides.
Right. That there's potential, but it's so important to have a very good plan ahead of time because as prepared as you can be is going to prevent some of the surprises that pop up.
Right. And how important is a realtor in those 4 things for finding comps for you and telling you what's possible?
Critical. You need somebody that knows what they're doing because, and it only happens every, once in a blue moon that we walk through a home that is like outrageously overpriced of like, goodness, it looks really nice, but in this neighborhood, you can't get prices like this.
Right.
And it's because they didn't know what the comps were before they started.
Right. Or what we see once or twice a year is you go into a home that's halfway through a remodel.
Right.
And it's for sale.
We see that a lot. People get in over their head.
Right. That
and then they're losing their shirt.
They didn't realize the costs or how much it would cost going into it. Right.
Yeah.
I walked through one gosh, it was in Heartland, probably 2-3 months ago, and you could tell like they stopped mid remodel.
We have a buyer, I think it was a year and a half ago now.
Yep.
First time home buyer who's a very, very handy guy. Like he really is awesome. And he ended up getting this home for a steal because through the whole second story,
It was a bungalow.
It didn't have any walls anymore.
Right.
Because they'd started and they just couldn't
Couldn't finish it.
Yeah.
Right. And then now he's going to finish it off, and he's going to get, he has to deal with doing it, but there's that upside there because of that.
Yes, we talk a lot about upside, and we ran numbers as if you were an investor, even though it was young first time home buyer who's living in the home, but just so that way he knew what that upside looked like.
Right. No, you need to, and I know we've come back to it a few times. You need to know your numbers. You need to know what you're going to be putting into the house and what its potential sale price is at the end. And one of the things we do for our clients, because they'll reach out to us sometime and they'll say, hey, I'm looking to remodel my kitchen. Can you tell me what my house is going to be worth after I do this remodel? Right? And we'll come out and we'll sit down and we'll talk with them. And what we're telling them is, listen, you're doing this for you. Please understand that we want you to reap the benefits from it. We want you to enjoy it. So make sure you're doing it for you and not for resale. At the same time, we will give you the numbers and we will say, hey, this is how much the house is going to be worth after you do this remodel. Be it adding a bathroom, putting a sunroom on a house, remodeling the kitchen, finishing a complete basement.
Right. It has huge effects on value, and your realtor should be able to give you some specifics for your home in general, specifically for the home of what it looks like on the other side.
Right. They should also be able to give you a little bit of advice on what features sell.
Yeah.
Kind of like, hey, what have you been seeing lately? I know you go through hundreds of houses a year. You're in new builds. You're in houses that have been remodeled. You're in outdated houses. You're walking through with buyers. What are they liking versus what are they not liking right now? I can tell you that gray is still popular, but it's on the outside right now.
Yeah.
Like less people are wanting it, right? I can tell you that before the grays, we were seeing a lot of like earth tones, and we were seeing the reds and the burgundies and that. But one of the things I can tell you now is, honey cabinets and brass are coming back, much to my chagrin, because I'm not there yet.
Well, and it's interesting because it's a lot of warm tones. So it's still kind of contemporary. And we're starting to see more of that. That's something that started in the magazines and so forth. But we walked through not long ago a house flip that was very much what's been popular the last 5 to 10 years, where white, gray, very, very cold. And having gone through other homes that had more of those warmer earth tones that are getting to be more popular now, it felt extra cold. And our buyer even said, wow, this is so new and beautiful, but I can't stand it. This is not the place for me, which was remarkable to hear.
Yep. And I would say to people out there, and I agree with Angela, but I would say to people out there also that staging is important. So if you are an investor doing a flip, it's good to have a relationship with a really good stager, or to have some extra furniture that you have in a storage unit or in your basement that you're able to bring in a few things to kind of paint a picture. Remember, whenever anyone is selling a house, they're telling a story. And they're painting a picture for the new person that's coming into the house, which is why I say, if you have a lakefront property, it's different than you have a property on 15 acres, right?
Right.
You're painting a different story because the house is going to appeal to a different person.
Right. Different houses, different people.
Right. I recall 7-8 years ago, I was walking through a house that had every dead animal you could ever imagine on the walls. Right?
Right.
And for some people that was very appealing, and for some people it wasn't. But in either aspect, the only thing people remembered about the house was all the dead animals on the walls.
Right. Yeah. When we talked about it later, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that house.
That was the house with the zebra.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But what I would say is, as you said earlier, neutrals are best.
Because ultimately, and this is for any of our sellers as well too, but for an investor, you need that buyer to picture themselves there, right? You need it to look like a magazine. you want somebody to really want to buy this house, and you're spending all this time and all this money and taking on all this risk, and it doesn't work out like it does in the TV shows all the time.
No, it does not. No,
And,
it's not when you get done, they get to do the open house and 40 people walk through the open house and they all want the house and you have 6 offers 2 hours later.
Yeah.
Right. It also isn't the aspect that, they did the complete remodel in 3 weeks.
Yes.
And everyone was there. Like, most flippers don't have access to 12 trades that are going to show up on the same day and all work in tune with each other.
Right.
Right.
But also know that your realtor is a great resource.
Huge resource.
And they can certainly offer tips of things to be careful of, if you're flipping a home or investing in one and it has a septic and there's a question of if that septic is going to be in good enough shape or not. There's certain things, foundation, septic, that you got to be really careful because you could end up really in a costly position.
Right. And as you do invest in flips, you'll realize things that you're going to shy away from. Not because it's not something that can be fixed, but it's something that you're not comfortable with or capable of fixing. Right.
And that maybe it's a greater risk.
Or it's going to take more time.
Yes.
Right?
That's true too.
Timing is a big thing, So, but I would say your agent is a valuable resource because just like I said, you hire some things out. Your agent is one of those things that you're hiring out. It's their job to market the property for you. It's their job to help you determine the price. It's their job to connect you with the great photographer that's going to do the video for you, that's going to do the pictures for you. They're there as a resource to you. They're there as a partnership to you to find a person that works well with you, that not only is going to help you sell the home, but is going to help you identify your next project after they sell it.
Right. And I have a spoiler alert on this. The more you trust in the professionals, the better it turns out. And so that does mean your realtor, of course, but even in terms of any of the trades that you might hire, any carpenters, any whatnot, they're the ones working around it all the time. So in terms of whether it's something that's stylistic or anything else.
Right. Your painter's going to be able to tell you this is the hot color right now.
Right.
I would go with this. I wouldn't go with that.
Yeah. Trust the professionals like you would with a doctor or something, It's
right.
The more you try to exert, the less chance you have at being successful. It might still turn out fine.
Right.
But
and the other thing I would say that this is not a all the time thing, but the flooring that you're looking at on clearance and the lights you're looking at on clearance, there's a reason that it was on clearance. Right. Yes. And it's not always that they bought too much of it. It's that may not be a popular color anymore.
Right.
Style.
Or maybe it's really difficult to install.
Right.
You might be, saving a couple bucks, but really creating more problems for yourself.
Right. And you know what I would say to investors out there? Ask a lot of questions.
Right.
Learn what you're doing. Know what you know and know what you don't know before you jump into the process. There's a lot of upside potential,
right?
But there's a lot of risk involved as well.
Right. So
you need to know what you're doing. And if you're going to be doing it, it's okay to start off with a small project and work your way up.
Right.
Right. There's money to be made in the repair aspect before you move on to renovations.
That's true.
Right. And things like, I know you, Angela, love to say, hey, if you're looking at a flip, find one that already has a basement, that's maybe finished, that you can remodel a little bit, because a lot of the work is done for you,
right?
Because basements have a huge upside.
They do. Because when we're pricing out comps, it's a night and day difference.
Right.
And if you have to finish it from scratch, as an investor, you're not going to get that money back.
No.
At all.
No. You look at where you're getting the biggest bang for your buck. Right. And that could be zip code, that could be square footage, that could be number of renovations that are needed. There's so many things involved there, and there's always that potential for the diamond in the rough, but don't overlook houses that could be a good potential because you're looking for this amazing opportunity to make $200,000 on one house.
Yeah, that's not realistic.
It's okay to make 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. Do your math.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because if you are an investor and this is what you're doing, and if you're just waiting forever for the perfect house, well, that's losing time too.
Right. And there's great houses out there for rentals. We've helped some clients get some nice rentals that they have some good stream of income from. Get yourself a couple rentals. That gives you a nice stream of income. You can become a landlord. There's upside and downside for that too, which could be a whole nother episode to talk about all the issues that you could or could not have as a landlord. And if you are looking at a house for a flip and it has a tenant in it, please talk to your agent and make sure to ask the right questions about how long that tenant's in there, when the tenant is going to get out, and look at all those contracts before you even make an offer, because you want to make sure that you're putting yourself in the best possible position, and you want to eliminate the unknowns.
The risk of what happens if that person doesn't move out.
Exactly.
Because that can happen.
Yep. Also look at assessments.
Yes. That's
Make
huge.
sure that there's no assessments on the property. Make sure if there are assessments that the county is imposing or the township is imposing, that you're okay with them, that you know how much they are, that you know when they're going to end.
Could you imagine somebody comes in, they've purchased their rental property, they have plans to take a couple months, and all of a sudden a major assessment hits?
Right.
Then that could suck up all of your
No, that's why homework is so important.
profit.
That's why who you work with matters.
Right. Absolutely.
That's why having a good title company matters.
Yeah.
Figuring out what those unknowns are, making phone calls, talking to people, asking questions, knowing that there's questions to ask and what questions they are that you're supposed to be asking.
Absolutely. There's opportunity, but you have to thread the needle because it's not obvious. You have to do your homework,
Right.
just like anything else.
And the funny thing is all of these things you could look at through the lens of a buyer and say, okay, I'm buying a house. I'm going to be doing all this stuff to it. Remember, you're buying the house because it's what you want. You're going to get the enjoyment out of it. But that doesn't mean these all aren't really good questions.
Right. Exactly, because at some point that buyer is going to resell that home.
Right.
And maybe a year later, and maybe 20 years later. But you want to make sure that you're making the right choices.
Yes. Yeah. And have a good inspector, get a good inspection. Start at a good baseline.
Yes.
Right?
Know what you're into.
Know what you're getting into. I would say very quickly, have a budget before you go into it. Sit down with a spreadsheet, figure out how much you think you're putting into it, then add 20% for the unknowns that you don't know. There's always going to be problems you didn't know about.
Right.
Right? So have it into your budget to be like, okay, I have a little bit extra room to take care of these things. Look at what your carrying costs are, but have a budget so that you don't get into something that gets out of hand rather quickly. And don't let your eyes be bigger than what it is you're looking at, right?
Right.
And the other thing I would say is when you're making renovations, remember A leads to B leads to C leads to D. Right? Sometimes you do things to a house that you thought were really good, not realizing the other dominoes that you just made fall.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, give us some real live examples of that here.
I mean, it's so hard to say, but sometimes you replace countertop and all of a sudden it makes the cabinets look like hell.
Look hideous.
Or
flooring.
Or flooring. Like, okay, I put a backsplash in. Oh crap. Now the countertop looks horrible. I have to replace the countertop. Oh crap. Now I have to paint the cabinets. Oh my gosh. Now I'm going to put on new hardware that matches the backsplash and the countertops. This all looks beautiful. Now I'm going to put in some new flooring, right? And now I'm going to think about the appliances, right? So not that all those things didn't need to happen, but when you look at a remodel, look at if I do A, does it make me have to do B and C?
Right. Maybe that new flooring makes the carpet that was okay just look horrendous.
Right.
And that's something to be cognizant of.
It does, and to look at all of those things, right? Last thing, when you're looking at houses for a flip, if it's an older neighborhood, lift up your registers on the floor and see if there's hardwood underneath the carpet.
Yeah.
There is so often in these older homes that they put carpet over beautiful hardwood. They put linoleum over beautiful hardwood,
Right.
right? So you're looking for those hidden gems that now you can re-expose and refinish. And now you're eliminating a lot of your costs. You're like, okay, I was going to be putting down LVP in this room, but I looked in the closet and I pulled up the edge of the carpet and I found out there's hardwood from the 1960s in here. Now I can pull up the carpet and I can refinish the hardwood. And I have this beautiful hardwood that I've now brought back to life. Right. And it reduced the cost of your renovation. You can repurpose things in the house.
Yes.
Okay.
Makes a difference.
Reuse what you have sometimes. And sometimes painting cabinets and adding new hardware is just as good as putting in brand new cabinets.
Yep. Absolutely.
You know,
and
so
it's less hassle.
It's less hassle. So I think we've hit on a lot of things here. I could go way more in depth on it. I know we've talked for like 40 minutes on this episode. You know, I really appreciate people coming in to listen to us. We have a lot of expertise in this area. You know, if there's any investors out there, I'd love to sit down with you and talk to you about, hey, how can we help you do a better job at what you do?
Right. Can we help you reach your goals?
Right.
It's the homes that aren't fixed up that there may be deals to be had.
Yeah. No, what I've learned about buyers lately is there's less and less buyers that want a fixer-upper.
Fewer. Yeah.
Fewer. They want the work already done.
Right.
Which means that there's an opportunity if you're a person that can go in and renovate homes. If you know your math and you know how much these things are actually going to cost you,
Yeah,
and you're able to do,
somebody.
even if you hire people,
know
right?
Your prices, yeah.
Know your prices. You know, obviously you make more money if you're doing the work yourself. But as we said earlier, if you're not doing quality work, then maybe it's something that you shouldn't be doing. Maybe you should be hiring that part of it out. It's okay to admit that you have a shortfall in a certain area.
Right. Right. Because there are places that you can be able to hire and get just sort of the basic things done.
Exactly.
But knowing your numbers is huge.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of young people that don't know how. And there's older people that have renovated and they say, look, I'm moving again, but I'm not going to do it anymore. And so there is definitely more demand for homes that are fixed up than those that aren't.
Right, because you would be amazed at the number of houses out there that the sellers think is all nicely renovated and updated, but it was updated in 1992.
This is true.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's not exactly where it is now, except for the fact that some of that stuff is coming back right now. So it all comes around. It's amazing. Sometimes you go into these houses that people like the seafoam green stuff in the bathroom because it's retro.
Making a comeback.
It's making it, and other people are like, oh my gosh, I need to get that out of there. So to each their own, there is a place for everybody, and we're just here to help facilitate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it was so nice for you to join us today. I hope that you got some information out of what we were able to share.
Yep. Check out our other episodes on real estate. We have quite a few of them out there, but check out the episodes we have on all the great businesses and causes and people in Livingston County that are doing such amazing things in our community.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yes. And
welcome to Livingston.